Hi everyone, this is Kelly Grassi, your instructor for Excel Level 1. Class has started today. I had my first in-person session of class this morning for my iFlex section of class. So I am now recording this section for you and I will be posting this recording for all students, whether you're in my in-person class or online. So a couple things. Of course, if you have not done so already, I'm finding that a lot of people are not watching the videos that I'm posting. So I had posted on Sunday, kind of explaining a few things in this class. So please go back and watch this video. I'm trying to keep them short, but it is something you need to listen to and understand in order to be successful in the course. I taught Word Level 1 the first quarter, and after having taught that class, these are things that I think need to be set up front in order to help you be successful in the class. Okay, other things, read over the syllabus, the announcement, kind of even joked, maybe read them twice so as not to miss anything. I just over and over again, I often have students asking me things that are in my videos or in the announcements, in the information. And of course, I want to help every student I can be successful. Your success is dependent on you following the directions, reading everything. I know it's hard to read. Most of us like to skim, but in this case, it's important for you to read and watch the videos that I'm posting for you. Okay, so what I wanted to do is make sure that you're reading the syllabus. I know I put this in the last announcement, and all I want to mention really is the grading scale. So please note the grading scale. Oops, I just flew right past it, sorry. Here, the very first thing that's due today, the SAM Getting Started project, October 14th, due today. It's only 5 points, but it's a quick, easy points that I'm going to show you how to do in this video. After that, every module is going to have a SAM training, SAM projects, and SAM exam that'll be done within your Cengage account. And then find the review problem, which will be done from the book, but you'll upload that into Blackboard, and the final project. Note that you do need an 80% or higher in order to pass the class. And again, please note the schedule. I know I also put this in my last video. I would encourage you to print. Those of you who attend in person in my class, I always have copies of this stuff for you. If you don't have a copy, I would highly encourage, or don't come to my class, I highly encourage you to print this, have this in front of you so you can see what we're doing each week. So today in my we covered the first part of the module. Most people could work through this whole first module in no time at all, but because it's an in-person class and because we're trying to get people logged into Cengage, this first class, I kept it to just the first half of module 1. And really, again, another learned lesson from teaching Word. Things start out a little slow, people are confused, so I wanted to be sure to give everybody enough time in these first 2 weeks to make sure you're understanding everything. So this week we covered the first half of Module 1. Next week we're going to be covering the second half of Module 1. And then the first assignments, other than your orientation, are going to be due Tuesday the 27th. Okay, go into learning plans. You're going to see more here than what I have see more than what you see. But you right now should have these data files available to you in your Software Learning Center orientation. The data files are the files that you're going to need anytime the book asks you to open a file, and I'll speak to that in just a minute. But I would highly encourage you to download these. If you just click on the link, download the file, and then I would encourage you to save it to maybe your desktop. I'm going to go ahead and put this on my desktop so that you have all the files you need and you're all set to go. So you always know that those files are sitting on your desktop. Once you have those files downloaded, I just want to point out to you, Excel 1 is referring to Module 1, Excel 2, Module 2, Excel 3, Module 3, 4, and then finally the final project. When you go into the folder, this would be for Excel 1, the module files. The Module 1 files are in here. The review files are in here. We will never use the case problem files, but just so you know, that's how you can access those files. Okay, I'll come back to this in just a second. But if we go back into our learning plans, for today, you should be doing the Software Learning Center orientation. If you are already in Cengage and you had an account from Word Level 1, you're going to be clicking on the getting started, no matter what, you're clicking on the getting started project. If you do not have an account, you're going to want to watch this video here on how to register. You should have already purchased your code that you need for the class in order to access the ebook. You can pay for it right online, or you can purchase it from the bookstore. Either one will work. When I click on this now, it's just going to go right into my project because I already have an account. For most of you, it should just go right in if you already have an account. If you don't or have any trouble, let me know. You can always contact Cengage technical support here. They're really good about helping you out if you're having any issues. Okay, so click on the Getting Started project. Those of you who have had Microsoft Word or PowerPoint are going to find that this looks very familiar because it's the exact same Getting Started project. The whole point of this project is to just make sure you understand how to download instructions and submit instructions in your MindTap Cengage course. Notice it lists the project name here. Assignment details, maximum number of submissions allowed. So you can get 3 tries on this one. So if you get anything wrong, you can resubmit. Number of submissions you have remaining, I still have 3 remaining. So I can go back in and do this again, or I can do it for the first time. But this will always show you how many submissions are allowed for each assignment. So I'm going to click Start here. And it jumped ahead to step 2 of 2. Yours should say step 1 of 2, but just pay attention to that there. Hit the back button if needed. I'm going to download my instructions. I'm going to download the file. So the instruction file, start file. I'm going to open my instruction file and open my start file. This is a very basic assignment. And as I'm doing this, I feel like I've done this before. I don't know if I think I've done it before because I did it in Word and Excel, or if I already put it in that video for you. So I apologize if you're watching this again. Okay, so here I have my file. Notice my name is in it. If your name does not appear here, you need to go back, maybe log out, come back in. If you would ever submit an assignment that does not have your name here, that would be, the assumption would be made that you're cheating because you've submitted somebody else's assignment, and you would receive a 0 on that assignment. So make sure that it's always your name there. I'll go back to the instruction file here, enable editing, and maximize. And then one quick tip here, if you like to see your instructions, some people will just print these out. And again, those of you I have in class, I'll always have printouts of things for you just to make it easier. But you can also have these side by side by dragging on the title bar here. Keep going until that little shadow shows up, and now we have this. I can choose this. See, I think I put this in the other video because I think I did this. I can't remember, my goodness. I think I'm going crazy. Anyway, so then you would follow the directions here. The nice thing about these directions, they'll always give you some brief instructions here. They'll tell you how to save it. So I would go to File and Save As. And I'm going to browse and just throw it on my desktop so that I know where to find it. The only time you're going to use this is right now. And then it tells us to put a 2 on the end. So I'm going to get rid of that 1, put on a 2. Anytime it puts this .doc in there, you do not have to type that in yourself. Word will put that on there for you when you hit save. So I'm going to save. And then every project will tell you some information here. Tells you to make sure you're using the files that they're giving you. Read each step carefully. This project is super simple, but every other project has multiple steps. So you would read it, make sure that you're not missing any steps or misunderstanding any steps. Don't edit your file in any way. Sometimes you'll get done with the file and be like, oh, well, I'm going to make that column heading bold, or I'm going to make the title a different font. Don't do that in these assignments here because they'll mark it wrong if you do anything beyond what they're asking you to do, if you do anything different than what they're asking you to do. In this particular case, they just want us to click right here and type in the word hello. So we're going to do that. And then they always tell you, they always give you a picture here at the end of what your project should look like when you're finished. So that's what ours should look like. You also should have a footer down here that says it's created specifically for you. Your name would be here. And then once you're done with that, we're going to hit save one last time, make sure it's saving. And then you're going to quit Word And then you're going to follow the directions on the SAM website to submit your completed project. So I'm going to go ahead and close out my instruction file, hit save one more time here just in case, close out that file. And now I can move on. I can hit continue. In step 2, it tells us to click here or drag or drop your file. So I'm going to click on my file to go get it, the one I just saved, and it remembered where I was, but I had you save it to the desktop. Hopefully that's where you saved it. You can go find it. Click open. I can see here it tells me it's ready to submit, so I'm going to click submit. And then it'll tell me that my assignment was submitted. And then I can click on view report here. And notice the other thing you notice, it says submission attempts 2 of 3. So we have more options. I'm going to open my report here, and hopefully I'm going to find that it's correct. If I can get this to open. So any project you do, yay, I got a 5 out of 5. Any project you do will have your name at the top here. This goes to you. From my perspective, the grade just enters right into Blackboard. So I don't see all the details as far as what was marked wrong. Now I can go back and look at that if I need to, but this is your report to look at. And if you find, now if there's like 10 instructions in the document, it'll have all 10 instructions listed here and either give you a green check or it'll give you some red text telling you what you did wrong. And then you can use that information to go back and resubmit the assignments if you didn't get the score that you wanted to. I'm going to close that out. I don't need that. So there's my getting started project finished. That's all you have to do for tonight by midnight. So hopefully, I noticed most of you have turned this in already, but if you have not, you need to go get into Cengage and get that completed. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close that. Once you have completed the Software Learning Center orientation, that's all you have to do for this learning plan. Then when you go out to your learning plans, you'll see Learning Plan 1 should be appearing here. As you complete each learning plan, the next one will open. So I'm going to click on Learning Plan 1. And I just want to go over a few things. I don't have it here yet because I haven't created the video, but in a moment I'll have the video listed right here under the learning activities. Anytime you do learning activities in any course, it's meant to be practice. So working through the modules is the practice piece to getting ready to do your assignments. Everything that I'm doing in the video is to help you so you understand how to do the assignments. And that's what you're doing here. You're doing the module for the Getting Started with Excel module. You work through those activities to make sure you know what to do for the assignments. Then for each module, you'll do the Module 1 SAM training right here. You'll do the SAM end of module project right here. You'll do the SAM project A right here. And then you'll do the SAM exam. And then finally, you'll do the review problem. Now, just a couple things. SAM training and SAM exam are very similar. So this one here and this one here are very similar. This one allows you to excuse me, observe how to do something, practice it, and apply it. There's no reason why on this one, unless you do it late, you should get any points off because you can keep doing it until you get it correct. You can get all full points for that. One hint for you, if you get to the exam and you come across something that you're not sure how to do, keep that window open, jump back over to the training, find the exact thing that they're asking you to do, and follow those directions. Every once in a while, you're going to come across steps in the exam where you're like, I just did it how I did it how I thought they wanted me to do it. And in the exam, you only get 2 attempts at doing a task. So you want to make sure that if you get it wrong the first time, you go back into the SAM training and double check that before you would maybe try the second attempt in the exam. The end of module project and the SAM project will be just like the Getting Started project we just did together. So that is where you're going to download instructions, download the file, complete the file, and re-upload it. And then Cengage will grade that for you. And then finally, the review problems you're going to be doing at the end of the chapter, which again, I'm going to go over that here in a little bit. Okay. So for every module, you're going to open up this very first Module 1 and this is the learning activity. Click on the Module 1 Getting Started and read the ebook. Okay, so are you really going to read it? Probably not, but I'd like you to look over it a little bit, especially in this first chapter. Sorry, tickle in my throat. You're going to find that if you're familiar with Excel at all, this first chapter might be pretty familiar with you. The problem I'm going to caution you on is that the book will do things how it wants you to do them, and then it'll expect you to do them that way within the projects, within Cengage. So while I might not necessarily teach it a certain way, that's how Cengage wants you to do it that way. So just be aware of the fact that the book is having you do it a specific way. So to access the Module 1 chapter in the ebook, you would click on this link. There's nothing to turn in for this. This is you just working through the chapter and making sure you understand everything. And that's what I'm going to do for you each week. I'm going to work through the different chapters so that you can either watch it and follow me, or you can just watch it and better understand what's going on. But if you are struggling with anything, I would expect that you would be watching the video and working through the steps before you would reach out and say, hey, I can't figure out how this works. That's the one negative to doing things online or not coming to my in-person session. While it saves you time in the moment, you still have to find time to go and do that later. So it doesn't get you out of having to do the work that we do in class. You're just expected to do it on your own time. So let me just go into this again. Technically, this is where you would begin in the chapter, the visual overview. If I open my book, this is what it looks like on this page. And then if I hit the arrow key here, it would tell me to get started on the Windows taskbar. Click the Start button and then click Excel. So then I would click my Start button down here and I would click Excel to open Excel. Now you might not have, maybe you have rented the book. I showed you how to do that in the video. You can rent a paper copy of it for just over $8, including shipping and tax. If you don't have the book in front of you, then you would be clicking back and forth, or maybe you have an iPad or something you could bring this up on. I have had some people bring it up on their phones too, but that can be a little difficult. So then it's telling us to open, click browse, go into the Excel 1 module folder and open this file. Now, typically I don't open files from within the program. I don't know why. I think it's a little clunky. So I usually will just open the file from the File Explorer here instead. So I would go into remember it was on the desktop, I'd go into my Excel Level 1 folder. I'm in Module 1. I click on Module and I click on this file here to open this file. And really they're just utilizing this file to kind of introduce you to Excel. Again, I know a lot of you maybe feel familiar with it, even if you haven't used Microsoft Excel before, but they do give you some tips and tricks a little bit here to kind of help you in making sure that you understand how things work in Excel. So for instance, number one, look all the different sheets we have in here. I think enough people have worked in Excel to realize you can have more than one sheet, but lots of different sheets in here. This textbook will always begin with this documentation sheet, and you'll always be expected to fill this out before you start any assignments. Okay, so I'm going to just go over a couple things here that I just want to mention. This is the budget sheet. When you're doing things in Excel, just a reminder, you need to left click, hold, and drag in order to select items. If you double click in a cell, you can no longer left click and drag in order to select items. You can also use the shift key to select. So if you have a really long spreadsheet, like this registration sheet, I can click in cell A3 here and then use my shift key to select it all. I just scroll down to the bottom. I could also hit Control End, but I don't have the right keyboard right now to do that. Holy cow, this is a long file. This is a good example. And then I can hold down my shift key and click in this last cell here to select everything. So you know you've been in those moments where you're trying to select something and you're clicking and dragging and trying to select, and then all of a sudden it's not working or it's going really slow, and then all of a sudden it takes off on you and selects way more than you need. So the shift key allows you to select just portions of the text. Same thing with the control key. You can select some of your text and then hold down the control key, which isn't going to work for me at the moment. I'm using my Mac to do this. I don't have the right keyboard in front of me. But you use the control key, you would select your cells and then hold down control and select another grouping of cells, allows you to select non-adjacent cells. So I just mentioned how I'm using my Mac. Again, I just want to reiterate, you cannot use the Excel version of Mac or the Microsoft Office version of Excel. Do not use this. I have Windows installed on my computer, and so therefore I have Microsoft Office on this computer. You'll run into way too many problems trying to use a Mac, especially as we get to the charts in the end. I'm not saying you can't try, but I know some people have made it through parts of classes using their Mac, but usually at some point you run into some difficulties. Okay, just like anything else too, you can use the Control Home. Control Home will take you to cell A1, Control Home. Control End, E-N-D, would take you to the end of the workbook. And of course, page up and down would allow you to go up and down on the screen. Your arrow keys would also allow you to do that. Okay, I have a new workbook open here because I started Excel just a moment ago. If you don't, go to the File tab and choose New in this file and then choose Blank Workbook. I already have one, so I'm not going to click on this. This file we're going to start now, and we'll continue using it next week as we continue in Module 1. So if you go ahead and click File New, we have a new blank workbook in front of us. Just a reminder that, here's all what we'd call our column headings. Here's our row headings. So anywhere I click, this would be the column and the row, where the column and the row intersect. That would be cell C8, considered a cell reference. Your name box always tells you what cell that you're clicked in currently. This is our formula bar, or really the bar that shows us what we currently have inside the cell. And of course our ribbon, we'll be using that quite a bit, obviously. But to start with, we're going to double click on sheet 1 and we're going to type in miscellaneous expenses. And then we're going to add a new sheet by clicking on this plus sign here. And we're going to call this sheet, again, I double click here, documentation. If you ever need to change that, just like I just clicked a second ago, you just double click it and you type whatever you need. That's how you can change your sheet name. You can add a new sheet by clicking on this button. If you have too many sheets, you can right click on a sheet and choose delete. Notice I can right click on a sheet and rename it, but we already know how to do that. I can add a tab color if I want to, if you like coloring things. Or you work in a company where it's really, like maybe you refer to certain things, maybe they're color coded in certain ways and it makes sense for you to have things color coded, you can do that. Again, don't do that in the Cengage stuff because it might mark some things off on you, but just more of an FYI for you there. Sorry, I just moved that documentation sheet without even thinking. That's how you can move things. If I want documentation sheet, will always be your first sheet in your workbook. So if it's not your first sheet, left click and drag, and you see that little black triangle, wherever that moves and wherever you drop the sheet is where it's going to stay. Left click, drag. Okay. Again, we're going to set this sheet up in order to use it again next week. So this week is all about typing in information, but let's save this first. So I'm going to go to the File tab and Save As, and I'm going to browse to my desktop because that's where I have my file saved. Desktop Excel Level 1. Since the folder system is already in here for you, I highly encourage you to go into the correct folder and saved it in the correct spot. So because we're in Module 1, I'd click on the Excel 1 folder, Module folder, and then we're going to name this NP underscore EX underscore 1 underscore MISC for miscellaneous. Again, I don't need to type in that .xlsx. It'll put that in for me. And now I can see right here that my file was renamed. So now we're just going to start typing in some information. And as I mentioned to my class today, this is the most information you're going to be having to type pretty much for the entire class. It's just the very first time you're getting into Excel to kind of show you how it works with typing in information. So on the documentation sheet, we're typing in med IT and then enter twice and type in author, tab, type in your name, enter date, enter purpose, enter. For the date, we'll just go ahead and type in the date that way. Forgot the last 0. And then the purpose in this case is to estimate expenses at the Med IT convention. Okay, I just want to point out as I'm working through this, if you're wondering, like, how do I know what I'm doing here? Again, I'm getting this from this module. So I'm on page 119 in the book. I can click right here, and I can click, does this line up? No, this doesn't line up. Here we are. Come on. Okay, so you can see this is the steps. These are the steps I was just working through. You go to the documentation sheet, hit Control Home, type Med IT, enter twice, type blah blah blah. You can see this is exactly what I'm doing right now, working through this. Of course, you don't have to watch my video to do this. You can do this yourself. And that's what we're doing in class every week. But I'm still going to create these videos. For some people, it's easier to watch me do it or to work along with me. The other thing is this part of the textbook, you might be watching me do this and thinking, why am I watching you type text? Because I can figure out how to type text, and I totally get that. But we're going to get to the point in the book where you're not going to know how to do things. Even next week, we're going to talk about formulas. If you've used formulas before, you might feel again like it's super repetitive, but there's going to be things I'll point out to you that maybe the book doesn't, just to give you more examples of how to do things in Excel. So, okay, keep going here. I'm sorry, I just lost my spot. Okay, we don't want it to say convention. This is one thing that people do get confused with sometimes. This text was entered into cell B5, and I want to change convention to be conference. Well, I can't click on it there. You know, if I try and type in conference here, you see it just cuts off the information that was here. You know, it's all still there, but it cut it off because I put something in this cell. So I need to click in that cell, and then once I get the cursor in there, then I can click on that and select it, or I can just click up in here and select it. Oh man, that was a mistake. Okay, there we go. I thought I deleted it for a second there. Conference in Boston is what they want there at the end. So that's how you can fix text if you need to. You can double click within the cell to get to it, or you can just click the cell and adjust it up here in the formula bar. Okay, over to the miscellaneous expenses over here. We're going to add some text here as well. And again, this is just going to be super boring. So I'm going to pause the video for a second. I'm going to type all this in. If you want to do this on your own, great, because you are going to need this file to continue in the second half of the module. So I'll pause it here for a second while I type all this in. Okay, so I typed all of this information, and I just want to go over a couple things before I continue typing. So number one, postal code. When you type this in, because it's a number general format, it always will take that 0 out. So you can think, you'll probably think, did I type that 0 in, or did I forget it? Then you try to type it in again, and then it still doesn't hold. What you have to do is you have to click in that cell, go to the general option here on your home tab, and go down to text. Then you can go back, make it a text cell. I can put the 0 back in, and it'll stay. So that's why that's not working. The other thing I wanted to point out is I start typing in my units here. If I click in cell D11, so number one, if you haven't typed this and plan to type it, I would pause the video now and type all this out so that you can have this ready to go. Because in a second, I'm going to be changing things. It's going to be hard to see. So D11, I'm going to click in and start typing in my units. My units should be 1600 for this first one. The second one will be 1. The second one should be 3, then 1, then 525, and then 6. Now notice how all this text is now cut off. So anytime you have an example like up here, the text will always overflow into the cells next to it until you put something in that cell. And in just a minute, we're going to fix this so that we can see more of the text. And for now, I'm going to go back to cost per unit and type in my information there. So 245 for the first one, 335, 75 for the next one, 850, 55. Okay, so once we have it all typed in, we're just going to take a minute here to resize things. So column A, for the most part, is fitting, but postal code's cut off here in expense category. Of course, this is our title. We don't need this to fit because it will just overflow into the other columns. So to adjust your columns, you can click and drag like this. We're going to make this around 18. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just scroll until the width gets to be about 18 characters. Then we're going to, in column B, we're going to select the column heading. Another way you can adjust the column width is to go to the Format button, go to column width, and type it in instead. In this case, we want it to be 12. You can also right-click on your column heading and choose column width that way also and type it in. Any of those will work. Then we're going to click on the right border of column C. So if we put our cursor right here on the border of column C and we double click, it makes it, this is what we'd call basically an auto fit. So it's going to make it fit in there. In this case, though, we don't really want it to be that big. So we're actually going to adjust that back here in a minute, I think, or yeah, we want that to be about 30 characters. So you can either drag it back or you can type it in, whichever you prefer. Column E, we want it to be 12 characters as well. So I'm going to go to column width here, type in 12, and that should do it for those cells there. Notice that some of this is still cut off just a little bit, and I might even bring it in just a little bit more to show you. So in order to make this text show, I can left click and drag through these cells, and I'm going to choose the wrap text option, and it's going to force that stuff down onto a second row, which makes it easier to read, looks nicer, maybe not such a long cell in that regard. Okay. The last thing we want to do is adjust the row height of row 14, but I'm not really sure why, because mine did not end up being, it says to make it about 18 pixels, just to make it a little bigger, but all my information was fitting, so I think we're okay there. Okay, so this is it for this week. There is no homework for this week, but I do need you to get this to be set up like this, because next week we're going to go in and start adding some formulas over here. I'm adding some borders, using some different formulas to figure out the cost here. So we need this to be done for sure, so that you can pick up where we can pick up where we left off for next week. So just in recap again, I'm just going to save this. I'm going to go back to Blackboard. Sorry, wrong one. Go back to Blackboard. And in this particular case, for this week, the only assignment that you have due is really the orientation. That's the only thing that's due, is this getting started project. And that's, again, due tonight at midnight. Other than that, if I go back to our schedule, we were doing Wednesday, the 14th. Today, we just did the first part, module 1. Next week, Wednesday, we're going to do the second part, module 2, which if I go back into my book here, you can see it tells you where that starts, session 1.2. This is where we'll be working with different formulas for next week. And then next week, I'll explain to you the projects that you're going to do. We'll go over how those are going to work since we'll finish up the module next week. All right, let me know if you have any questions.